The simple answer is yes. The examples of using GPT models, whether it's the ChatGPT 3.5 that is free, or whether it's the ChatGPT 4, which comes at a small price per month, or whether it's the enterprise solution, I see many examples of employees utilizing this for just-in-time information. The question that we need to pose is, what is it that you're looking to learn from ChatGPT? What is it that you're looking to do? So, of course, we can't just dive into that portal and expect to be given a course. It can't do that. We only have 15 to 20,000 tokens available of memory, so it will never give us a long, well-structured approach. But what it can do is give us really short, good answers and pointers that then in turn also allow us, for example, to go back to internet search engines and utilize what we've learned. So very often when you're starting out and you don't know something, you don't even know the terminology. So how would you start a Google or a YouTube search on a video that might help you, right? So one of my standard examples is pivot tables in Excel. There's a lot of words that come in pivot tables that we don't know when we haven't done many pivot tables. So now I'm saying, you know, give me an overview of pivot tables, and it gives me the general structure. It gives me the terminology. And then I might be able to say, oh, I'm trying to achieve this. Which functions would I need to use? And then that might help me. And then I might be over the text answers, and I might want to go to YouTube and search myself for something that I would want to watch to then implement it into my workflow. And those are very straightforward examples. People are also using it to say, look, I've got this Google Sheets or I've got this Excel file, and I'm trying to write this formula. I'm trying to extract something very specific out of a long string of text, because unfortunately I've been giving it in a PDF where I can only copy and paste it as a huge thing, and I've got 500 lines. So a standard example there is if you get your credit card statement in PDF, then you always get one really long line where it has everything in it, and somewhere hidden in the middle there is the dollar or the pound or the euro sign with a number, and that string is different lengths, right? You might have bought something for 350 and you might have bought something for 3,500. To say, give me the formula that finds the euro sign, then finds out how long the number is, and then copies exactly that number into the cell over here. Some of these functions, of course, are already existent in Excel. When I start doing this by hand, it starts suggesting, oh, you probably want to do this. So this example, please don't please don't kill me over the use of this one, because it's a little bit too simple. But what I'm trying to explain is these are the ways in which people are utilizing the GPT system in very useful fashions without sharing any proprietary information, without going beyond sort of the boundaries of the cybersecurity fencing around an organization, to just help them upskill and reskill and do things in their day-to-day tasks better. But always important to point out, you want to then use other tools as well. You then might want to go and have a video. You then might want to go and Google things yourself, now that you've got some terminology that you might not have had before. So really great examples, but of course, these are examples that are the direct use of the tool, not versions of the tool that L&D have now put in place. If we're looking at versions of the tool that L&D have put into place, then Danielle has already shared a really fantastic little example of a simple version of a tool that one can play with and utilize for training for specific situations. And then, of course, there's a huge development which GPT and similar language models sit in the background. For example, I've recently seen a fantastic VR experience where someone working in customer service has someone rock up at the desk and complain. And you now have to, either with VR or in front of your laptop or desktop, all you need is a microphone, you now have to in real time respond to that complaint and to that person shouting at you. And so organizations have said, well, the way we want to handle these is we have a structure of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 ways that we want your answer to be structured. how you listen, how you empathize, how you calm the person down, how you then suggest a solution, how you mention a time frame, those sort of things. And that's just really cool in terms of being able to practice in the situation. You know, we can't go to the classroom and read such scenarios somewhere on a board and then pretend in our head that we're trying to answer them now. That's not the same. And I did this one on my own recently as well. I was given access to the site, and I have to say, it puts you in the situation. It puts you under pressure. I was thinking, oh wow, what do I say now? What was the next point? Oh yeah, I need to empathize. Yes, I understand that is a difficult situation. And so really cool use cases, but we really need to see also, hopefully I've given a broad answer here. We really need to see whether we're talking about the direct use of the tools or whether L&D built tools with that sitting in the background. Hopefully that's answered the question broadly.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the answer actually. And I also really appreciate the example because it gives me a sense of something that I can completely relate to. And I haven't seen the VR example, but that sounds really cool because you really get that immersive experience and that real-time feedback. So that's really cool. Good to know. Thank you so much.
Perfect. So with large language models, and this will also cover slightly a privacy and data protection issue. With large language models, we've come a long way. At the start, they were utilizing, and this was open because we were all beta testers when we signed up to this in December and in January and February. At the start, they were using every interaction to teach the model and to utilize what they've learned there. Later on now in the year, they've put more measures into place to reduce that to fine tuning, utilizing just whether people found answers useful or not, but not learning directly from the interaction. So now the model is separate, so to speak, from the interaction with you. You can still say, I liked that answer because it did this, or I didn't like that answer because it said this. And you can interact with the system in that way, but it will not take any text or anything you've discussed with it and utilize that, and it might pop up somewhere else. So that is now ring fenced. So it's just being fine tuned, and that gives you a certain stability because the model now is relatively good, especially on the things, as I tend to say, that high school essays are made of, where the training set is fantastic on the internet and where we get really good responses, where the language is now appropriate and polite and friendly. And so the model is now relatively stable. Of course, these organizations are interested, one, in improving the models, and two, in giving you security that what you've built is going to be stable. And so these releases will come out at some point, but at the moment, most of them are guaranteeing us that updates will not just immediately change what's happening. And depending on your use case, your use case is unlikely to be at the fringes anyway, right? When we're upskilling and reskilling general things, right? That is not at the fringes. What I'm thinking about is wild ideas like utilizing ChatGPT as a coach for mental health. Right? We have wild ideas like that floating around, and I'm not saying that I can't see a large language model playing a role in the future, but having fine-tuned the model to be nice and polite and friendly, and be a nice conversational partner with the knowledge of the internet backing it, that's not good enough for responsibility to even pretend that it can deal with these kind of situations. But you're not going to be in those fringe scenarios. So I would say it'll be very stable. The beauty is also you will never get the same answer twice. You're very unlikely to get the same answer twice. And if you want a conversational training system, then that's probably a good thing because that's the variation you're looking for, right? Also, someone is very unlikely to put in the same question or the same answer exactly worded the same way twice. So we're not looking at repeats here, we're looking at utilizing the model. And thus my summary would be, They will be updated, but these organizations are very keen that these updates don't disrupt their users. Otherwise, their complete business model breaks down. Imagine tomorrow, OpenAI or Llama or Claude or Bard run an update, and LinkedIn is full of people saying, my business app no longer works. I mean, how many people would go and very quickly cancel their subscription and move over to someone else? So the competition is huge, which is great for us as users. And I think we can expect a certain stability there. And also privacy concerns are being addressed more and more. The privacy features now in these systems is fantastic in the sense of that, yes, you can delete your chat. Yes, they also guarantee that none of your chat ever makes it into the system other than at the moment when you're interacting with it. So those features are great. You just need to decide whether your organization allows you to interact with it from your machine, or have they purchased a GPT Enterprise, and then it's fine because they say, yeah, that's part of our strategy generally. So again, a slightly longer answer trying to really highlight all areas of the map that I can think of might be of interest in this journey.
Well, that's a great no, that was excellent. I hadn't even considered the idea of the privacy with that too. So that's a great direction.
And then of course use cases will become more and more, and we'll see more examples, right? But these interactions with a language model, especially if we can back it up with a good knowledge engine, if the system is trained on many previous conversations with lots of fantastic examples, right? In customer services, if we record lots of conversations, both complaints or we can feed it the summary of a complaint, right? We don't have to record the customer, but we can say, these are the complaints we tend to get. This is how they're worded. This is how model responses looked. You can train your own LLM version of that internally in a large corporation, of course, for a tool that you might want to use. And then you've got everything really streamlined in accordance with how your corporation wants these situations handled, what the 5 or 6 step process is to handle these. There, the LLM will then only really sit in the background and become almost the tool where we will very soon, I think, forget that there was such a hype that these models could do this. It will become normal, and we will start asking, what are the real applications? How, I'm over being excited that it can talk and sound human. What can I now really do with it is the next chapter.
I was wondering if you have any experience with creating knowledge base data sets for large language models that are trained within the compounds of that knowledge base and can be updated just like a knowledge base it's updated in any company.
This is something that's developing. So at the moment, I'm not aware of too many good systems where you can, without an enterprise solution, train it effectively on your own internal data, ring fence that, and specifically direct that. Enterprise solutions are starting to exist where you can do that. More and more smaller organizations are coming out and doing this. The speed here is incredible. We've seen several posts recently, for example, on social media where people have been able to create their own chatbot interacting with a 15-page PDF that they've created within 5 or 6 minutes, right? So the general applicability exists there. The issue is that the kind of data you're probably talking about, we really want to train the LLM. We have lots of data, and we want to have our own version, and we want to utilize all the data that we have in our organization. So that's where we're more looking at the enterprise solution. But this is also now we're talking computation resources in terms of time and energy. And that's where the price at the moment shoots up drastically. And there are, however, already models looking at working with smaller data sets and doing this training more elegantly. So I'm expecting a lot of movement there right now. And as we continue to, the next 12 months, there will be movement every week, every 2 weeks on these kind of questions. It's just a matter of staying on top of those developments. But there's right now, there's no simple, straightforward answer to that as to this is how you could currently do this. There's too much movement in the space, and anything I would say that was in place yesterday somewhere might be out of date next Monday. So it's more a general question of what is the timescale that you're looking at developing this? What is the amount of data? What is the budget? What would be the use case and the ROI? And then seeing whether one of the enterprise solutions is worthwhile.
Thank you. That's a great answer. I appreciate it.
I would say, trust is a difficult word, right? but I would say these systems have improved. They have reacted. The organizations have reacted to what the public was voicing as concerns. And privacy has become a topic at the forefront in order to ensure longevity for these organizations. So OpenAI needed to solve that very quickly, and they have. So I would say, as a private user, I trust the system with this setting. I delete my chats purely because the list gets too long, and I want to keep the ones that are the most important for me to go back to and continue or have a look at again, or steal a prompt that I recently used that I don't want to put in place into different documents or whatever. I'm not that well organized. I remember what I did yesterday. I go and steal that prompt, and then I continue working. So that's the reason I don't delete them. Now, the question you're asking is probably slightly more edgy, because you're probably thinking, I work for an organization, what do I do? And there, the question is not one of trust. There, the question is one of, what does your organization's AI manifesto say? What is the AI policy in that organization? And this is something I do in a lot of workshops with L&D and HR teams and even senior leaders in business. You need an AI manifesto needs to be in place, and it needs to be clear on what is okay and what is not okay. There are organizations that have said, we're not allowing any of these systems at all. There are organizations that have kind of kept it open. There are organizations that say, you use it, but never use a client's name, never use a specific case, never share anything that is very specific. And then there are organizations that have now moved, jumped forwards and said, yeah, we've got the enterprise solution. We trust that this is the enterprise solution and this is okay. And so in our manifesto, it says, as long as you're using it like this, you're okay to use it. So I know that's a little bit dissatisfying an answer when you're an individual, because you're now thinking, well, what has my organization said? And so many different organizations say very different things. Some are really leaning in and going full on these developments. Some are really cautious. Many are probably just cautious because they're waiting for 2024. They're waiting for the budget to be in place. They're waiting to make bigger decisions, and they've kept themselves back, getting their own strategy right, because you don't just need an AI manifesto. You need an AI strategy. You need to know how the leadership team will work, how the agility in the organization will be guaranteed with so many agile tools possibly floating around, but moving the business forward. There's a lot of questions attached to this. So I would say, in summary, yes, you can trust these systems now as a person, in the same way that, at the start of PayPal, we might have been a little bit iffy to hand over our credit card details. Now we find online shopping relatively normal, and we throw our credit card details in if we've heard from a friend that the site is okay. And yeah, I think I would trust it as a private person, but when it comes to organizations and to work use, It doesn't come down to whether you trust it or not. It comes down to what your organization has put in as a guideline. But the security measures in these systems are now far better. Your data is not utilized for training of any sort, and your feedback of whether you liked an answer or not just helps with the fine tuning of how the system works in general, not with the specific discussion that you were having. I think that is an absolutely fantastic use case. And I do this in a lot of workshops that we say, now go off and do something. And we might give a very specific task. We might give a general task. This is exactly how the future of learning is going to work. We will move away from having just an e-learn or just a workshop or just in person or just virtual. There are so many tools in the box for L&D now that what we need to maximize is knowledge transfer, retention, and performance improvement and change in behavior. And for that, we need to utilize all the tools in the box. So in a workshop, we now have more available to us. And excuse me if you're a fantastic facilitator, you're going to hate me now for being so blunt, but we have more in the box than talking from the front or asking people to talk to their neighbor or to the 3 other people at their desk. So there's not just the plenary and chat to your desk now, there is far more available. And to say, utilize this tool, have a look at this tool, this desk try and solve this problem, this desk try and solve this problem, individual little teams, groups of 2, there's now so much more available. So I think this is a fantastic idea. Any good program or worksheet would say, and now go off and try something, now go off and do something with this, and then come back and maybe share if it's a workshop, share your feedback with the group, let's learn together. For me, that's exactly how it should be used, and we'll hopefully see much more of this going forward. I haven't seen specific frameworks to bring the social element in, but I think this is absolutely key, and one of the big questions that we need to ask ourselves as we utilize this tool more. I gave the example of the VR experience, right? ChatGPT in the background, a language model in the background. I'm interacting with it. Very soon after the complaining customer is gone, my trainer will walk in virtually and have a chat with me and do the feedback session, right? That won't be just text. We now have so much available there. And then with the trainer, I can have a backwards and forwards. And then I can say to the trainer, I want to do that scenario again. Or I can say to the trainer, give me a slightly different scenario. I want to practice, or whatever it is. And so that will become far more interactive. And so that's where, for me, the chat in ChatGPT is very misleading, because we're going to move away from the text. We're going to move into a more virtual setting where we can interact. And simulations are going in that direction. I mean, a good one-to-one tuition class is basically just a really good simulation of that one-to-one situation with a really good teacher. So simulation organizations are starting to build these things in the background. Whether it's lonely is also a research topic, because we need to find out how we humans react to these environments, right? We haven't been there before. We see things in the virtual space that are a gigantic success, although we've never deemed it possible. And there are other things where we thought it would work really well, and it doesn't work at all, because humans are humans and we have our own ways. And so, yeah, for that social element, is it lonely or not? I think that's where we need to see how these models develop, how they become more human and give us that feeling that we're interacting and that we're not lonely, and then react with social frameworks around that. But that also brings me back to the previous answer, which is we have so many tools in the box. It would be silly to think about training just in terms of let's do the Socratic method with a large language model and maybe some visuals. That in itself would again be very boring, because if that's all we have, Well, then we've moved e-learning just from slides and videos and answering 10 questions at the end to just doing this now. The whole point is we have so much opportunity here to move the whole system forward, to give people something really personalized and in different variations. And then, of course, last but not least, very often in these discussions, we tend to focus on the more academic work. We tend to focus more on the desk workers. And yes, because many of our organizations work like that, but that's also a very short-sighted view, because there are many, many more employees in an organization, and the reskilling and upskilling and training has to cater for all of them. And many of them will need real practical advice and support and training. And that's where social elements come back in. And the front office worker who has to deal with complaints and a shouting customer, well, they will be surrounded by people all day. So there are other opportunities there to also bring in training. But of course, if they in their own time, during a break or during an hour that they were given to go away and do a VR experience and just practice a little bit reacting to clients, that's a good time to bring the tool in. So let's zoom out a little bit and say, what are we trying to achieve? And the social element, clearly a key here, but I've seen nothing like a framework. Thanks, Simon. A really good one. It depends on who you speak to, and there are different opinions floating around about this. And I'm gonna remove myself from this political discussion and just say, what we need to worry about right now is two things. One is, what are our societies doing to tackle this problem? And we have a responsibility there. Hopefully you're in a democracy listening to this. We have a responsibility voting responsibly and trying to move the system in the right direction, which is also already slightly flawed an idea, because this is moving very fast. But efforts have to be there, and the call for these efforts and regulations has to go out. So that is absolutely key for us in our own lives, private and in our jobs. It's more about, how do I stay on the front foot? No one can imagine what this world will look like. Yeah, we can go to the absolute visionaries and say, you know, what happens in 30 years? Will we have a standardized income for everyone in the population? No one works and AI does all the tasks, and robots and do all the tasks? Is that the future we will live in? We could also debate that, but we just don't know what the future is. What I do know is that in the next 2 years, those that are on the forefront, that participate in communities of practice and keep themselves up to date, are on the forefront and are up to date and can go with the movement.
And I also want to give a big thanks to everybody who submitted your questions in advance. I know there's a number of you who we've not been able to get to. You've had such amazing questions. And there's lots happening with hand raising and the chat and the Q&A. And I want to thank everybody for this rich, amazing discussions. We will address your questions, so please do put them in. They are truly important to us. And we're delighted to be able to help you and help elevate the industry in general. That does bring me to near the closing for today's session. Do want to say that we could truly want to help. We are offering a complimentary organizational assessment of technology, I would say. You know, we can get down this AI rabbit hole, but it would be useful to have a sort of a personalized assessment of, hey, where should I be looking at, or what can I think about from a technology perspective through the lens of learning and development? So we're happy to offer a complimentary session where we can assess your learning needs, identify any technology-driven areas for improvements, and offer these tailored recommendations, and truly just help address your tech questions. This is truly free. It's an opportunity for us to be able to help you along this journey through this free session. So our ways of continuing to apply what you've learned in these community practices, or for those who are just joining us today for your first community practice to help you get started on that journey through technology and learning and development. Some of the links that you'll see within what Jovi puts into the chat is Thinking Effect. So you haven't checked it out yet, it's like a really awesome website that actually has curated relevant tools for learning and development that use AI. Like that, how cool is that? So you get a curated list of some things that you may want to be exploring, or what I'm using it for. I'm like, hey, I have a use case for this. So I actually use it to help figure out, okay, what should I be looking at? Because there's just too many things out there otherwise. So that also there's a link out for that as well. And I do also encourage you to try the really cool ChatGPT interaction that we've shared, and to visit the website, which really has all those posts there, all these resources that I've been sharing.